Welcome to Headline News. This is Maria Han. Trump's daughter-in-law says Americans must fight to stop America's slide into communism. Lara Trump, the wife of the second son of former U.S. President Donald Trump, recently said on her talk show, The Right View, that Americans must fight to preserve America's place as the greatest country in the history of the world. She expressed that America is heading down a very dangerous path toward communism, and to prevent this from happening, Americans should not be afraid to voice their opinions and must stand up to cancel culture. Lara made the comments in the wake of the acquittal of the impeachment trial of President Trump. The president's attorneys faced the brunt of cancel culture, with one, David Schoen, losing a prospective teaching position at a law school, and another, Michael Vanderveen, finding his house vandalized. In response, Lara Trump said that the impeachment trial itself was a way to put a lid on the Make America Great Again populist movement. She urged Americans to not back down in the face of pressure. This is the greatest country in the history of the world. No one said it would be easy to remain the greatest country, but we have to do it. We have to fight for it, she said. You gotta fight for it because it's worth it. This country is so great. I want it to be the best country in the world for my children and generations beyond. But we're slipping down a scary path, and we cannot allow it to happen in this country. She also said that it is a communist mentality to force others to give up on their freedom of thought or be suppressed. She urged her listeners not to be afraid to express their thoughts and positions. They want you to be scared. They don't want any of us to have free thought anymore. It is to scare Americans, to scare you into submission, and we're not going to do it. We're not going to take this lying down, she added. Senior Republican Senator Graham recently suggested that Lara Trump could be the nominee to run for North Carolina Senate seat. British Prime Minister says that Britain will take the lead in defending human rights and European security. Due to the CCP virus, COVID-19, the Munich Summit 2021 was held online on February 19th, where British Prime Minister Johnson declared that a globalized Britain, after leaving the EU, would take the lead in defending human rights and protecting European security in the international community. The first post-Brexit legislation is the creation of the Magnitsky regime. Johnson said the first bill enacted by the British government after the UK left the EU in January of last year was a bill to sanction officials for human rights abuses overseas under the Magnitsky regime, the Express reported. He said, for the first time in nearly 50 years, we now have the power to impose independent national sanctions, allowing the UK to act swiftly and robustly. Our first decision was to create a Magnitsky regime to punish human rights offenders. The UK then became the first country to sanction senior figures in Belarus after the stolen election. We've now imposed sanctions on over 50 human rights violators, including those from Russia, Myanmar, and Zimbabwe. The British government first used the Magnitsky regime to sanction 49 human rights offenders and entities on July 6, 2020, banning them from entering the UK and freezing their assets in the UK. Johnson also said that the British government has not ignored the Chinese Communist Party's human rights abuses on the mainland and its infringement on Hong Kong's freedom and rule of law. He said, we have consistently spoken out against China's repression of the Uyghur people in Xinjiang province and will continue to do so. We've introduced new measures to ensure supply chains of UK companies are not tainted by the violations in Xinjiang. After China broke a treaty and imposed a repressive national security law in Hong Kong, the UK offered nearly 3 million of the territory's people a route to citizenship. We acted quickly and willingly, with cross-party support at home, to keep faith with the people of Hong Kong. Increasing NATO alliance spending to £24 billion. The Prime Minister also used the speech to recommit the UK to NATO, saying Britain's defence spending would rise by £24 billion over the next 4 years. This means the UK is comfortably exceeding the commitment made by NATO allies to spend 2% of gross domestic product on defense. And the UK now ranks second among NATO allies in defense spending, with the US in first place. Johnson went on to say that a globalized Britain is leading the way in defending the interests of NATO allies. He said, "When our allies on the eastern flank sought reassurance about their security, NATO responded by deploying a multinational force in Poland and the Baltic states, and the UK was proud to make the biggest single contribution, leading the battleground in Estonia, showing that we mean it when we say that our commitment to European security is unconditional and immovable." People continue to take to the streets in Myanmar over the weekend to protest the military's coup and demand the release of political leaders, including Aung San Suu Kyi. Local media reported that 2 people died and at least 20 were injured when the police shot at the crowd to disperse protesters in Mandalay, the second largest city in Myanmar. Many protesters gathered at the Yardenarben shipyard on the Irrawaddy River on Mandalay on Saturday, and hundreds of police and soldiers raided the site and shot to disperse the gathering. One of the protesters was shot in the head and died on the spot during the clashes, according to Frontier Myanmar, a news and business magazine in Myanmar's largest city, Yangon. Another person was shot in the chest and died on the way to the hospital. In addition to Mandalay, Myanmar's largest city, Yangon also held an event for the second day following Saturday to mourn the death of a woman protester who died a day earlier. The woman, who was participating in a rally last week, was shot in the head and sent to hospital, but died yesterday. The Myanmar military staged a coup on February 1st, arresting top leaders including Aung San Suu Kyi. The people of Myanmar then launched a series of protests, which were suppressed by the military's police force. If today's casualties are true, 3 people have died since the current military coup in Myanmar. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.